Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I've got a Marvel Rivals Season 2 tier list for you guys, but this one's going to be a bit different from a lot of the others you've probably seen recently, as I'm going to be focusing on the best characters to climb ranks, whether you are in bronze, silver, gold, or even maybe platinum, versus the tier lists that largely focus on the upper echelon, the best characters played by the best players. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, there's enough of those tier lists, right? I don't need to do another one of those. You know what the best meta characters are. But also, I feel like it can be misleading at times because players who are the majority, right? The average player struggles to climb, and they'll look at these tier lists and like, this is an S tier character, so I have to play S tier characters because they're the best. Whereas instead, if you're looking at the characters who are going to allow you the easiest time, whether you are just learning, whether you need to be able to swap to easy to use characters, or whether you simply are facing opposition that's different, because team compositions, what characters are meta, all of that changes when you rise up the ranks. And so when you are lower ranks, if you want to climb easier, have a better time, and increase your win rate, this is where this tier list should come into play for you guys. Anyway, that's enough rambling. We're going to start off with the Hulk. He is a good A tier character right now. I think he's harder to really maximize than some of the other tanks. He does require you to jump in and out of danger to really utilize his bubble effectively, because it doesn't last that long, but it can save your team from a wipe from an ultimate or other heavy damage sustained pressure. So that's something that he really shines at if you use him properly. But you're best off using him to dive in and out of danger and do some damage, maybe attack the backline, pick some characters who are out of place, that kind of thing. The way he really shines right now is with his team up, because Namor is really good against dive, and obviously dive is solid right now, but it's more oppressive at the lower ends where players struggle to hit their sleep or they struggle to hit the freeze. So the strategists are constantly getting dove, and so having a Namor can be a huge advantage there. Plus, at the lower ranks, you're going to be less likely to run into insane Hela and Hawkeye, so the team up with Iron Man is also very, very nice as well, and allows him to do a lot more pressure damage, so that's something that I feel like is very useful. And so because of that, he is a good solid pick. Even if you're not as good with him as you are with other characters, he's still someone that I think should be used. Well, next up we got Punisher. He is a solid case all around. If you are not good at hitting your shots on flyers with either Hela or Hawkeye or someone like that, then, and you're facing Human Torch or Storm, any of these characters, then Iron Man, even, that's where Punisher can come in handy quite a bit. He's also the best character at dealing with turrets. At dealing with Groot walls, especially if you have your turret or the infinite ammo with Rocket, who's much better this season. So that's why he's going to be solid middle of the pack. He can be pretty good to climb with. He's a good option to swap to if you are struggling with other characters, in my personal opinion. Then we have Storm. I'm actually going to put her at B tier as well. If you are not a normal DPS player, she can be actually pretty solid for a couple reasons. One, you're buffing your team, right? So you're providing utility even if you are struggling, if you're not a typical duelist player. Plus, when you are playing as her, you can stay up in the air. If you have enemies that aren't hitting their shots, she can do a lot of damage from up above. She's not as good as she once was, but she's pretty solid. And her ultimate, if used correctly, can be insane. Now, her ultimate is easily countered by a bunch of different strategist ults and certain abilities as well. So definitely keep that in mind. But against lower performing players who are not really maximizing their cooldowns, that's where she can be really, really good. Then we have Loki. I am going to put Loki at C for climbing. And I know he's insane. He's one of the best strategists in the game right now. However, a lot of players don't. He's just too difficult to understand for a lot of players. The amount of times I've had Lokis on my team who are just massively struggling because they aren't able to generate the healing output. They're not generating enough ult charge in order to copy the ults quickly enough. Like, there will be times where a Cloak and Dagger, Rocket, or Luna Snow will get their ultimate twice in the same span that Loki gets his once, and when that happens, he is providing no value whatsoever. This is the case of the inverse property, where you see him really struggling at the lower levels, and then once you get to the higher levels, a good Loki can dominate a game. So that's where I think he's a bit different than a lot of other characters in that regard. Some characters are good throughout, some struggle early and get better later, and vice versa. So that's where I think Loki falls personally. I'm going to put Doctor Strange there as well. Team up with Scarlet Witch. You do see a lot more Scarlet Witches when you are in the lower ranks, and there are some pretty solid ones out there as well. I just think that with the current meta, with everything that Doctor Strange does and the nerfs that he's gotten, he really struggles at times to provide value outside of his team up. Whereas with Hulk, you are doing better, but essentially you're just holding as a shield tank all the time, and you're not really contributing the damage and the kills that you need with Doctor Strange at this particular time. And that's why I think he does struggle quite a bit in comparison to past seasons and the other Vanguards in the game right now. Mantis. She is B tier. Now, I know you need to manage her cooldowns and all that kind of good stuff. And I know you need to understand how to buff and heal at the same time or in conjunction with each other. But she is the type of character who I think is useful no matter what, because if you are a player who doesn't know how to maximize her as well, you can still throw on your heals to your allies pretty consistently, even if you aren't buffing them. Learning to buff your teammates is very valuable as you rise up the ranks, but this is a character that you can learn and grow with, and really good Mantis can shine even right now in the current meta, in my opinion. Then we have Rocket Raccoon. He's going to be S tier for me, and the reason I say that is you can dodge away from the dive characters, even though it is harder this season with the nerfs to his dive cooldown. He puts out a lot of healing. He has his res, which can absolutely turn the tide, and especially in the lower ranks where players are not destroying the res beacon, they're also not being patient enough. So what'll happen is they'll get a pick and they will automatically just hard push forward, and then that's when you're able to counter them because you are at full strength and they don't understand that you have that res available. And so I've seen that far too many times, and so for that reason he reses up. Plus with the buff to his ultimate, he is actually very, very good, and I do feel like he is one of those characters who is just super useful and super easy. So if you are a Vanguard or a Duelist main and you don't know who to play, he is probably the best option alongside Cloak and Dagger as a strategist. Then we've got Hela. Hela's always really good, but you have to hit your shots. So while I think she's probably A tier, maybe even S tier in the game overall, as somebody who's watching people climb and trying to climb myself right now, I took a break. This is where my opinion comes in, and it is a bit interesting because I didn't play ranked at the beginning of the season. I didn't jump in since the rank reset. And so when I started playing, I was not playing with players who are necessarily of my skill because a lot of them had already climbed. And so watching a Hela player who doesn't ever get their ult because they're not doing enough damage, they're not getting enough eliminations. They're play with like a Thor or Loki to try to get that team up, but you have to get kills in order to generate the revives. And ultimately, I think her kit is so reliant on aim that if you're missing your shots or if you're just shooting the tanks on the enemy team consistently and not playing for picks, she can be really frustrating to have on your team. Black Panther. Black Panther is similar to Spider-Man as well as Magic, in my opinion. I know I'm putting them all in C, and that sounds a little bit crazy, but hear me out. all of them have carry potential. All of them can be very good. All of them can be incredibly annoying against you if they are good in the right hands. But very rarely are you going to see, like, if I've played with 20 Spider-Man players, 3 of them are providing a lot of value to the team. If I've played with a bunch of Black Panther players, it's the same thing. And the problem is also these types of players who play these 3 characters, refuse to swap. So what ends up happening is they will play these characters and then they will essentially, even if it's not working, never want to change up. Maybe they'll change up which of these 3 characters, but yeah, it's just really hard. And as a player who doesn't main them, it is incredibly difficult to find value. So that's where climbing with those characters feels next to impossible, unless you are just maining them 100% of the time, which can be a massive detriment to your team because they need other things at certain times in order to be successful. So that's where I think those really struggle. And Dive is better this season than it has been in the past, but I just don't. There's not been one time, whether it's Lord or regular, that I've been excited about playing with any of these characters, and that's why I put them so low. So anyway, next up is going to be Groot. He's pretty easy to use. He's pretty valuable. Now, in order to be... The reason I don't put him at S tier is because maximizing his kit is a lot harder than like Magneto, for example. I think Magneto is S tier because he's so easy to use as a defensive character while also doing damage over the course of time. Plus, his ultimate is pretty easy to use. You're pretty much going to use it to counter other ultimates essentially in the game. And because of that, the timing is very easy to understand. Magneto is not as strong as he once was, and I think Groot, like, these 2 are definitely swapped. I think Magneto might still be S tier at the higher ranks, but Groot is way better when you have a really good Groot player. There's just not a lot of them at the lower ranks. He's annoying, but he's easy to counter. They'll put their walls in places where you can just burst fire through them, especially if you have like a Punisher or even like a Rocket or other characters who can burst fire through the walls and burn them down really easily. And when he doesn't have the walls, he really, really struggles. Magneto, on the other hand, again, super simple to use, the best defensive tank shield in the game, and ultimately just the go-to Vanguard when you don't know who else to play and you're able to trust your team to provide the damage and the kills that are needed. Luna Snow, I think, is A tier. I think because she has a couple things going for her that, even though she's not, like, she does require aim in order to be successful, I do feel like she has some other value there. Obviously, you can heal your other characters with her Snowflake and essentially just put that on a character who is harder to hit. Maybe it's a Venom or Spider-Man or somebody who's moving around a lot, versus you can then target heal your main tank and then do both at the same time, which is where she provides a lot of value. Her ultimate is still, in my opinion, the best strategist ult in the game. It's absolutely insane. She has her freeze if you can hit it, even luckily hit it against some of the dive characters. That can save your life quite a bit. And so ultimately, I think she's very, very good and has been good for a long time, will continue to be good for a long time. Iron Man. Iron Man's interesting. I think he is probably right in the B tier. He is a character who can be insane. Like, a good Iron Man flying around using his unibeam can be really devastating. I just think in general, the problem with Iron Man players is they will... too many times people don't understand the kit and they don't want to get into close range combat. They just sit back and they just start shooting the rockets over and over again. But you're just basically giving the other team ult charge at that point. So when I'm facing against Iron Man players, it's very hit or miss. And then even people who are using them, learning to use his flight, learning to use his rockets versus his unibeam, understanding when to overcharge, all of that requires a little bit more effort and doesn't... he's not as easy to use as some of the other characters, so that's why I put him higher. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is surprisingly good at the lower levels, like really good, and not a great character, but essentially you can auto aim burst a lot of players down at the lower levels, and they just won't be able to counter that. It's kind of like Cloak and Dagger. Like, I think Cloak and Dagger is probably up here as well, and the reason for that is at the higher levels, that auto aim, the right click or whatever you call it on PC, they are able to avoid it not only with their movement but also with their aim. They're able to use their burst character to one shot and burst you down and get you away from them very, very quickly. At lower levels, oftentimes you will be doing tick damage to players and they won't react at all. I've been in silver lobbies recently heading into gold where they just don't move. These players don't move at all, even though you're doing damage from the side or from behind, and it is insane to watch. And so her ultimate, a lot of people at lower ranks have hard time countering her ultimate for Scarlet Witch. Same thing with the Cloak and Dagger. Her ultimate, when you get to higher levels, is easily countered by Magneto, by some other characters, but at the lower ranks, they're not going to hit that shot with the Magneto meatball as often as possible. So that's where it matters a lot when you're using safe to play characters. Now, does that necessarily mean that they are going to dominate lobbies? No, they're just easy to use. And both of these characters, if you play Cloak and Dagger, you can play Scarlet Witch. And almost vice versa in a lot of occasions. And so because of that, those are characters who, if you don't main, as somebody who mains Vanguard myself, Cloak and Dagger and Rocket Raccoon are super easy to swap to anytime I need to play Strategist, even if I haven't played Strategist in a while. Same thing with DPS and Scarlet Witch. I haven't played DPS in a while. The easiest ones to switch to are Squirrel Girl, Scarlet Witch, those kind of characters. Then we have Penny Parker. Penny Parker is another character who the fall off is pretty insane once you get to the higher ranks. Penny Parker is not a character that can perform well when you are in Grandmaster and above for most players. But when you are anything up till Platinum, she can still be incredibly effective because players are just not as aware, especially when they are in the middle of a fight. So you can use your mines, you can place mines in cheeky angles in order to get one-shot kills, essentially. But where she provides a lot of her value is with her web, the capture, and I use it to counter ults all the time and all that kind of good stuff. She does lose a little bit of value because she's really so much better on defense and in domination versus on attack. And because of that, that's where I'm going to drop her down quite a bit because she is just kind of a one-dimensional type of character. She doesn't provide the all-around value that you'll find from Magneto, Hulk, Groot, all those other characters. Then we have Star-Lord. Star-Lord is pretty solid overall. Again, another difficult to learn character, but his value is so high with some of the things that he does. His ultimate, you compare his ult to like Black Panther, for example, it is insane and insanely easy to use. And I feel like that's why he provides a lot of value there. He's got his dashes that provide immunity if you time them right, although that can be a little bit more difficult. Does pretty solid burst damage, and overall, he is a character who I think does benefit if you're running with an Adam Warlock, who I think is pretty solid overall right now, but maybe not the best character in the game. So because of that, that's why he drops down from where he once was. At the end of last season, him, Mantis, and then Adam Warlock were absolutely insane together. Namor. This is another character I would say is S tier for climbing. The reason is multifold. One, you are often in the backline protecting your healers. That is one of the things. So many duelist players will scream at their strategists, why am I not getting healed? Why am I not doing this? Because they are oftentimes fighting and losing to the duelists who are diving the backline, to a Venom, to a Captain America even. And so because of that, having a Namor on your team to prevent that can be incredibly valuable. Plus, if you have a Hulk on your team, that team up is insane. He's not as good as he was with Luna Snow. Luna Snow provided more value, I think, as a team up with the slow, but he does insane damage with his turrets, and his shots are not difficult. Compared to a Hela shot, it just feels like it's easier to hit his harpoons from any range and be successful. And because of that, I think he is, especially because he can't be banned at the lower ranks until gold, he is going to be much, much better in order to keep the dive at bay and protect your strategist, especially if you have a dive character on your team and they're doing most of the backline work against the other team. Venom, I think Venom is fine. Oftentimes, though, I do think that there are other Vanguards who provide more value right now in the current sandbox, especially at lower levels, because he's more difficult to use and learn and understand, okay, what's the timing for his dive? Do you want to use his swing, or you want to dive off the wall and do a bunch of damage all at once and then use your grapple to get away at that point? And then after you've taken a bunch of damage, that's when you want to pop your overshield, not right at the beginning of the fight. There's a lot of nuance there that I think is hard to learn at times if you've never played him before. Adam Warlock, I think, is pretty solid overall. His ultimate, unfortunately, until you learn to use it properly, is really, really bad and can get your team farmed. The amount of times I've seen a Winter Soldier absolutely go insane because you res out in the open and he's in the middle of his ult and you just hear again and again and again and again and again. Is absolutely nutty, so that's where he's going to be right there in the B tier. But his healing is good. His damage is really good. The problem is you got to hit your shots, and again, we've established that at the lower levels it's not always happening. Thor, right? I think right there, the B tier as well. Nice little brawler tank. The unfortunate part for Thor, and I'm going to group some of these other characters together, is that I think there are better options for kind of the same role. Like, he has more range, and I wish his range was almost extended just a little bit to help him out with flyers, but there's really not much of a reason to run Thor unless he's just your favorite character when Thing and Emma Frost exist. And that's really the part that he struggles with right now. His damage output is really good, but he's just not able to do everything that these others do. Like, Emma has her shield that she can use. She can go in and melee brawl and do a ton of damage. Essentially one shot combo the lower health characters in the game. You got Thing, who can dash in and out with his dive to his teammates, provide overshield. He can also charge forward, stun enemies, and then all of that I think is just more valuable. Plus his punches do a lot of damage as well. So that's where I think Emma Frost is A, and I think the Thing is S. At the lower levels especially, because Emma Frost is a character who does require more learning in order to maximize her potential, whereas the Thing I think is pretty easy. Especially one trick I would say is change his run button, the one that you're gonna do the running ground slam, to from tap to hold. So essentially, if you hold it, you can time how long you're going to do it instead of having to hit the button twice. And I think that provides way more value because essentially you can just tap it once and it'll instantly slam right away. So I think that's a major change that a lot of players who jump on the Thing should utilize. Other than that, though, I think Emma Frost is really, really good. Her ultimate can be pretty good, although it does require more coordination if you're solo queuing, whereas the Thing, you can follow up with your own ultimate a lot better, and that's why he's really, really good. Jeff the Landshark, I think, is down here. Unfortunately, in D tier. Not going to be a lot of D tier characters, but I think because Rocket is so much better right now, and Shark is really good as a third strategist when you are able to use him on the flank and do damage, and his swallow is just one of the worst ultimates for second to probably the worst, whereas Adam Warlock's second worst for the Strategist. And because of that, I just think he's not very good. And so you can learn him, you can climb with him. It's just when you're first starting off, when you're climbing the ranks, you don't have the get out of jail free card of a support ultimate you would have with Cloak and Dagger, with Luna Snow, with even a Mantis, and that's why Invisible Woman, that's why he's going to drop down quite a bit. Captain America is insane right now, and him running around, I was thinking about dropping the thing down. But anyway, Captain America's insane. He feels like it's impossible to kill him. If you know what you're doing, you can just run around, be annoying, dive the enemy teams. You might not be getting a ton of eliminations, but you are going to provide a ton of value. You are able to shield a lot. Getting some of those reflects on like ultimates, like an Iron Man ult, is absolutely insane and one of the most fun things to do. And just ultimately right now, he is just such a hassle to deal with that I feel like he deserves to be way up high in S tier. Winter Soldier is another one. Super easy to use, right? Gets overshield from his abilities, reloads his gun with his abilities. You can essentially, you don't have to be as precise as like Hawkeye, Hela, and those characters in order to do a bunch of damage. His ultimate is very easy to use. He just provides value. His hook, at the lower levels, when players don't understand how to play around cover, they don't know how to maximize their cooldowns, his hook can absolutely change games, and it's pretty insane to see. Then we have Psylocke. Excuse me. She is really good as well. I'm going to put her in A tier, though. She does require a little bit more awareness, a little bit more learning to get good with. And because of that, you can have Psylocks on your team who are doing absolutely nothing. And that's something that is very annoying because they're just essentially flanking, going invisible, circling around the enemy team, doing a little bit of damage, and then fleeing right away because they aren't able to secure the eliminations. I have seen some Psylocks absolutely dominate at early ranks, but ultimately, she is one that I would rather see a Psylocke on my team than like Black Panther or even a Star-Lord. But that doesn't mean that she's going to be as good as some of the easier to use characters, even though I still think she's pretty valuable. This is where we get interesting. Moon Knight, I also think is A. Now, hear me out. I know he's not the best. I know his ultimate recently got nerfed. I know all of that. But the amount of hand-holding that happens in lower ranks means that you are going to be doing insane damage. Oftentimes what you'll see is two tanks walking up right next to each other. And then you'll have like a strategist just really close behind instead of finding a safe spot to heal. So essentially you can use his Ankh, you can use his just regular attack, or you can use his other abilities and just chain the attacks between each other and do insane damage. And you can farm your ult charge from that as well and get it back so many times. Moon Knight's at this level when you don't have somebody who is aware of the Ankhs, who is able to take them down, can absolutely dominate games. And I've seen some insane stat totals of final blows with Moon Knights because players just lack that awareness in order to counter them. And that's something that is a theme when we're talking about climbing from lower ranks. Hawkeye is fine. If you can hit your shots, he's good. His ultimate is good. But ultimately, he is a solid but not spectacular character at lower ranks because you're not able to get those consistent headshots and the consistent damage with him. Iron Fist is going to be S. He is one of the most annoying characters in the game right now. This is a large reason why I have Magic a lot lower, is because Iron Fist just does the job so much better. Not only against strategists, but also against Vanguards as well. Gets that bonus damage against the Vanguards and is able to heal himself, is able to essentially have an overshield consistently and just do wild amounts of damage at any given time. And players at lower ranks do not know how to counter Iron Fist whatsoever. This is another reason why I have Namor so high, is because oftentimes I will have an Iron Fist running at me, toss down a squid or two, do some damage, and then as they're punching at me, I'll go up into my bubble, let the squid continue to do damage while he's unable to get overshield or get any healing, and then I'll drop back down and finish him off. So I think that's a character who is actually insane right now, and definitely think is going to be seen a lot in the lower ranks. Just absolutely nutty and very annoying to deal with. Black Widow is a second D character. Requires a lot of setup. You have to hit your shots. Only really thrives if you have a Mantis buff consistently. And at the end of the day, just the worst version of Hawkeye right now. I don't know how you buff her without making her completely broken, but in the lower ranks, you're just not going to see her at all. She's just not very good. Squirrel Girl, I think, is B. The reason I don't have her higher, even though she's good, I like to use her to counter dive characters as well, if necessary, especially with her acorns. The problem with Squirrel Girl is if you have an enemy team heal botting and their tanks are just frontlining, you can put in insane damage to their front line and not make any progress. You're not getting any eliminations. You're not getting any other benefit from Squirrel Girl at that point. And that's really where you will get her ult very, very fast, which is also very nice. But at the end of the day, she's also easy to kill, relatively speaking. She doesn't have a lot of escapability besides her jump. And so because of that, I think she's solidly in the B tier. There's other characters who I would rather use, who I would rather see on my team. Like a Wolverine. And then also I'm going to put Mr. Fantastic right there as well in that same slot. And the reason for that is I'm going to go through each of these. But first off, Wolverine, he is still pretty good, but just Iron Fist does his role a bit better right now because of how good Iron Fist is, especially at lower levels. I think players who are just starting off can be... You can learn Iron Fist a lot easier as you're making progress than you can Wolverine. Wolverine requires you to learn how to... kidnap the enemies. You have to learn the timing, the distance of the jumps, and all that kind of good stuff. When to use his overshield ability to recharge some of that health, essentially. When to really use his ultimate as well. Iron Fist ultimate, again, very simple. Whereas Wolverine, if you don't use it right, you can completely whiff in a way that is very difficult to do with Iron Fist. So that's why I'm going to have Wolverine at A, even though I do think he's still very, very good. And then Mr. Fantastic. Against teams who don't know how to play them, Mr. Fantastic is almost a better tank, has better survivability than some of the Vanguards in the game. And the reason for that is that not only can you reflect damage, which that lasts forever, but like I said, the other teams group up a lot. So you'll grab hold of one of them and just essentially swing back and forth and just do damage to everybody, charge your ultimate, but also charge your enlarged mode where you will do a lot of damage. And so you're essentially an additional frontline character with him, and he's very, very good and very annoying. Now, as you rise to the ranks at the higher end, he is easier to kill once you have kind of paid attention to his cooldowns. You know when he can use his reflectability, when he can use his bubble overshield. You can burst that down a lot easier, so that's why he's a character who I find to be interesting. Then we've got the last two of the Fantastic Four. We've got Invisible Woman, who is another really, really good healer, good ultimate. I think it's harder to use than Cloak and Dagger, but provides more value as you learn her abilities. She is one who, if I'm saying you're a brand new player who wants to play Strategist and you want to learn a character to climb with, I would tell you to learn Invisible Woman. Cloak and Dagger is easier. Rocket Raccoon is easier. Those are the characters who I would say, if you are a Vanguard or Duelist main, maybe those are the two characters you start with when you are swapping if you need to fill. And that's where, again, this list is very important to remember that filling is necessary at times. And so because of that, that's why some of these characters are easier to swap to if you do need to fill than others. And then finally, Human Torch. Very simple to use. You can stay up in the air. You can just use his triangle, his box of flames in order to do a bunch of damage. Again, teams love to group up in lower ranks, and so because of that, he can do a lot of damage. Now he has his dive, his overshield, his shotgun blast. All of that combines to make him incredibly dangerous. Plus, you don't have to worry as much about a Hela and a Hawkeye shooting you down from there. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this tier list in the comments down below. Again, I know it's going to be different from a lot of the other tier lists you're seeing right now, and it's going to be different from depending on what rank you play, all that kind of good stuff. But I wanted to do this because I do feel like there is a gap in knowledge for players who are now looking to climb, who might be struggling and want to get to the next level. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.